Wake up, buyer payer people. It's a beautiful day. Go grab yourself another cup of joe and say hello to Jim and Michelle Rhoads on the Buy Here Pay Here Morning Show. Take it away, you two.
Oh, goodness.
Hey, good morning. Welcome back for take two of the morning show.
I think that our soundboard might have
Been jostled a little too much.
been jostled a
I
little
took
bit
it
too
on
much.
a recent trip to Oklahoma,
Yeah.
and that may be part of the
Yeah,
thing. We
we-
just had a terrible time with the soundboard this morning.
Yeah, well, we did on Friday as well, and it may have bit the dust. Don't know.
Yeah.
I gotta spend some time and play with it. So
Yeah. But welcome, y'all. We just got a big topic for today. Only real announcement for me is V8 related. We got V8 plus sessions tomorrow and a few more meetings before the close of the month. Of course, you know, our big reason for the topic today is we're in final preparation for our first White Hat Way certification course, and this is something we really haven't socialized much out there. This was kind of invitation only. We invited a select group, and we've got some dealers coming in. We've got our coaches that are going to be working with us in
vendors
V8
as well.
and some vendor partners. So happy to have a small group coming in here to do a first run
our
on
beta.
the pilot run on our certification course. And I think the big opportunity that we've seen out of this is, you know, as you start to dial this in and you think about the education, how it's going to be different. Like I had a dealer ask me on the phone when we started to really socialize this thing. So how's it going to be different from some of the other, you know, opportunities for training out there? And I would say that the main difference for us is this is squiggly lines, intangibles. You know, Michelle and I talk about that a lot, the squiggly versus straight. This is really about squiggly. So it's been a challenge to us to say, how do you take these intangible things and give dealers concrete ways to go back and apply these in their business and be able to, and then the other piece for us is then being able to measure the results and verify that it actually makes a difference, right? Because otherwise, you know, White Hat Way as a concept is a wonderful thing to talk about, being, you know, good guys and good gals in the community and all the kind of things. It's a feel good thing to talk about. And we look forward to being able to show that it will make a profound difference in a dealer's business when they bring these principles and kind of drive their business from these core ideas. Right?
And it's not just the ideas and the principles. It's also tools that we're releasing for White Hat Way dealers.
Sure.
And this is, we know, when we talk to dealers, they can go to a conference and they can take a lot of notes, and then they have to go home and implement. And so the next time a conference comes around, they open up their file folder and pull out the notes from the last one, and not a whole heck of a lot has been done because it just requires them to do a lot of the legwork when they get back. And so part of what it is that is being released is that White Hat Way is helping create tools so that process becomes easier for a dealer to implement.
We're going to make sure that we're part of the solution. So there will be very actionable things. You know, we basically have dealers coming in on Saturday. We're in session all day Sunday. We'll be recording that content, and then we'll have a test and wrap up on Monday morning. When those dealers head back on Monday, there will be very concrete things that they will have learned that they can take back and apply and you know, go to work with their team, and that's going to where the culture is going to kick in, and commitment to kind of a core mission and all these kind of things. But then I think that what you're alluding to is the tools will be actual things that we will be able to provide to them as a licensed dealer, if you will, to be able to you know, go to work with them and on their behalf to reach new customers.
Well, and you know, we've been doing White Hat Wednesdays for 3 years.
Since June of 2022.
Yeah, so for almost 3 years. And so there's a lot of principles that we teach already. And so those of you who, you know, just are fans and what are things that we can do to help create an atmosphere which is White Hat Way, based on the principles of White Hat Way. So, you know, it's out there for it. Like if you want to just start applying those principles, do it yourself and all of that, it's there. What we've created is a way for them to let us help them in the process of shifting their purpose and their mission and their how they communicate and all of those things. We're there to help them.
Yeah, and I think for today, the title of the podcast for today is this idea of how to earn and maintain and then sell trust. So this is the part that I think way in recent months, really in the last year, we've started to really hyper focus on this idea of selling trust. Like, what is it? How would we begin to I use the bottle sort of image as, how do you bottle trust? Like, if I could help a dealer put trust in a bottle, put multiple bottles on the shelf and have those built up, banked in a way that they could begin to use those, go open a bottle, anytime that it's needed. Well, how do you do that? How do you start to bottle trust, and how do you then sell it? Well, I think for our conversation today, the premise is really to help dealers understand, first of all, how do you actually do it? And so we'll take you in kind of a sneak peek of how this is going to look when we're with the dealers and the group on Sunday, in that we're going to be giving them very specific body language and techniques and things that can be done to start to train teams back at the dealership and begin to help them to win the trust of more customers, but this is not just for customers. This is within the team. This is can be vendor partners and the people that the dealer does business with. So all the things we're going to teach really apply in all those ways. And I think when we think about trust, it's like the thing that, the old joke about, trust me, I'm a used car salesman, right? It's like, it's like facetious, right? That this idea that a dealer is trustworthy. So I think in our segment, certainly there are dealers that are trustworthy. There are members of their team that are trustworthy. Question is, how do I convey that to a customer in a way that I can start to earn their trust? When I just met them, met them today, whether I met them online or met them in the building, right? So
and trust is actually an action word.
Yeah.
What things are you doing to elicit a level of trust?
Yeah.
And we shared a while back a quote from Mark Cuban with RX.
Oh yeah, his new pharmacy.
Yeah, and he was like, what people are really buying is trust. They trust that we're going to give them the best price. They trust that we're going to have it delivered quickly.
Right.
They trust that we have their best interests at heart. They trust that we are not going to do it the way everybody else does it.
Right.
That there are certain things that they trust about that, and it's a do thing. It's not just a say thing. It's a do thing. What are you doing to help elicit that trust?
Yeah, so we've been compiling materials. I wrote my own list of kind of actionable things or specific things that anyone could do. It's not just a car dealer or a member of their team. It's like how would a person go about earning trust? Okay, so let's go through some of those. I've got some banners teed up over here. Let's see if we can put those up. So you got maybe it's in the wrong. Nope. I don't see them, but there you go. So number one is communicate transparently. We talk about in our Appendix W and in our material and our core principles, transparency is a big one, and I think that just stands to reason. We had a conversation. I can't recall where it was, and with a dealer, but this idea. We've all been in a new car store, potentially buying a car, and you think about that experience where people go in a back office and you can hear them talking that they're talking about you and your offer or your negotiation, and they're over there kind of, it feels like they're conspiring, right?
Yeah, or that there's hidden stuff that doesn't come up until the last minute. Right. And it's like, what? And you don't want to say no because it could just blow the whole thing. But you feel like it dissolves trust when there are things that are hidden as well.
Yeah, and so I think this is the big thing, and a lot of times maybe they're using an actual sales tower and they go behind the glass, or maybe you can see them, maybe you can't. But the idea is they're having a private conversation. The feeling is that they're conspiring, strategizing, against me, and I don't feel like they're on my side at all.
It
Otherwise,
does.
they would be having a conversation with me.
It becomes very adversarial.
Yeah, and so I think this is the thing about, first of all, this is transparent. And I think one of the things I really look forward to, Michelle, is I'm going to be challenging our dealer attendees to, throughout the day, when they hear us present our education, I'm going to ask them, is there anything, at the end of the day, I want to ask them, is there anything that you heard me say throughout all of this training that you would not want to hear have a member of your team hear me say? That you would not want to have one of your customers,
yeah.
one of your vendor partners? Is there
Mhm.
anything that you heard me say that is not transparent and is all about the success of your operation
Mhm.
as a business and the customer? Because when the
Mhm.
customer is successful, you're going to be successful. And so this is kind of the whole premise of what we're doing.
Mhm.
I look forward to kind of, tackling education that way.
Yeah, and I just, like a lot of this that we're talking about too is putting in the context of a lot of things that we're seeing, and it's like some of these pieces that we've been talking about for 3 years are really really prevalent right
Mhm.
now. And so it means something, and transparency is a big piece of that.
Sure.
It's like being completely transparent. The next one is to deliver on your promises.
Right.
If you say you're going to do something, do it or don't say it. And this is a big problem with a lot of salespeople that we've seen is you as the dealer. When we talk to dealers all the time, you as the dealer is just like they're sitting there just mortified at the stuff that they're hearing a salesperson promise.
Yeah.
That it's like, oh crap, because now I have to make good on this promise.
Yeah.
And so it's the delivering on the promise is being very clear on what promises will be made, and it's like if those promises are made, you better deliver on them.
Yeah, and this kind of falls into the category of over promising or over delivering, right?
Mhm.
So this or over when you over promise, basically what you're doing is when you run the risk of under delivering. And so I think about this in the context of customer's car goes in the service department. I think it's going to take 5 days. The tech says probably a 5-day job. So I can go back to the customer and tell them 5 days. In which case, we just had a kind of a funny conversation where we know that when you tell the customer 5 days, should be ready on Friday, the phone's going to be ringing at 8 a.m. on Friday morning. looking for a car.
Exactly.
So one way to avoid over promising here is just tell the customer, they're saying probably Tuesday, looks like, 7-day job. So, obviously if it gets done earlier, we'll let you know, but it looks like Tuesday. So that gives us room to avoid over promising. We can have a chance to over deliver and get it finished earlier. But that's where we paint ourselves into a corner.
Yeah, and it's like that under promise and over deliver.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if you're over delivering what you promised, that is going to go a lot further than it's a complete opposite of under delivering and over promising.
It's easy to see we're trusty roads whenever we say 5 days and it's Tuesday, whatever, it's 2 days later and we still don't have it. That's where our trust starts to erode. And this is where I talk about, I always ask our clients to, let's not create our own stresses. And this is an area where we sometimes, the temptation, we want the customer to have the car soon. We know, just this simple example, that we know that we want to make them happy. So the temptation is to tell them it'll be ready quickly. Yeah. And this is where we put ourselves in a bad spot because we paint ourselves into that spot.
Yeah. And it also goes back to this communicating too, that if something comes up and your promise has to be shifted or, we need to come up with a new agreement, is communicate with them quickly and transparently about the things, because we all know that when we don't communicate and a customer's like this, but everyone else in the team has known that there's a problem here, or that, the part didn't, whatever it is, that your customer is on your team. And so make sure that you really communicate on those promises so that if there needs to be a shifted expectation, it's a lot easier. That it's like this promise is really, really tied to communication.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we can show that that's, that we're on top of it, I think just keeping in contact is big.
So the next one.
Show genuine interest. So obviously this word genuine, you really start to step into when we think about words like being genuine and being trustworthy and being authentic. In this course, we're going to take the opportunity to really take dealers through, because I'm aware, like these are things that I can say to a dealer, be genuine. Well, how do I do that? What is a way for me to show myself as genuine? And so I think this is what we're trying to give them, is actionable things, a way to go back and be genuine. So what is it to be authentic? Well, there's all these things that you can begin to visualize, but it's like and I would challenge everybody to look up the word disingenuous. Like I think I see that a lot in material across, this industry, others, where people are trying to come across as genuine, but because they include elements that are not specific to the matter, then you begin to come across as disingenuous.
Yeah.
So when I'm genuine, I'm just being real. I'm establishing a real connection, and I am being truthful, transparent, all the things that and we can answer this question ourselves. If you know somebody that you would view as genuine or authentic, why? What is it that you see in them that you would say makes them come across as genuine?
Authenticity. And I actually that makes me thinking of an example, like 'em or hate 'em. I've watched different podcasts, TED Talks and things of people that have been in a line at the White House to meet President Clinton, Bill Clinton. Like him, don't like him, whatever. But it is a very consistent thing that when people say, when I met him, it was like I was the only person in the room.
Right.
That there was such a genuine interest in the person, where through the visually and asking questions and not being distracted by anything and body language and all of these things, that this is something that people that didn't like him would say you felt like you were the only person that mattered to him when you were standing in front of him.
So part of that is active listening, right? Which is a whole different thing. You can look that up. There's actual kind of methodology that has evolved around just more than just listening. But I think when you use the word about genuine, like even to include it in a sentence, is like, what is it? Like what made Bill Clinton that situation? Like what are the specific things that you could identify? One was his attention, right? The other was he's being real,
active listener,
right? Yeah, he's not campaigning or stumping or whatever. He's actively listening. He's engaged. He's connected. And so I think anybody that you might view on social media that you think of as they're real. Like they speak about things in a way that you can tell they're not putting on airs. They're not promising to be something. And so as a result, that comes across as authentic, genuine, real. I can put all those things in the same bucket. It's just about and then the next one is being consistent. So that's another thing about being genuine, is people will identify that you are genuine when you are consistent in that approach, right? Whether it's the phrases that you choose, it's back to body language, which is obviously something that's challenging to sort of portray in this room. It's part of why we knew that it was going to be important to do the White Hat certification in person, right? It's really because there will be an amount of role playing. There will be some talk about body language and some real physical things that are very real and can help to create that relationship that we're looking for, make trust deposits with customers or wherever the relationship is. But I think that's what people they want to see consistency. Are you saying, think about this within the context of a team. Are you as the dealer principal in this case, are you saying the same things to somebody else that you're saying to me?
Yeah. And
that's when we don't have consistency, then it's natural that trust would become eroded. And we know that thing from just personal relationships. When you meet with a friend and that friend speaks negatively about someone else, then it's natural for us to conclude that they would probably do the same thing when they're sitting with someone else talking about us,
and
right?
So, but consistency is also something that is measured. And it's and so like a really great way to infuse your dealership with consistency is to have a very mapped out, what are your procedures and what are your policies that your team work from. And so the entire team knows this is how we handle this. The entire team knows this is what this is what we can promise. And so that consistency, it's really hard, and it's easy for someone to pick up they're not consistent when they can hear someone being told something different at the next station, or when they come in and someone says, oh, well, they shouldn't have told you that, or whatever. Those are consistency is, again, it's an action word. And that what your team what your team communicates, and what promises they make, and how the experience is when they come into a dealership is very consistent. Consistency is a really, really strong thing for developing trust, because they know, that this is what the experience is going to be like. They know that.
Yeah.
Just don't make it a negative one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think the way that starts, and one of the reasons White Hat Way as an identity becomes important is, could you use a different name on the thing? Sure. We chose White Hat Way as a way to represent something that is about character and integrity, right? And ultimately being trustworthy. But when you choose White Hat Way as an identity in this case, then when a dealer takes that back to their team and they live it, they don't just say it, they live it, so that the team hears in all the decision making and all the directives that come down. There's nothing inconsistent about this idea that our culture is built around this. We're anchored in this kind of core identity. And as a result, everything that we do, everything that I do as a dealer in that case, everything that my team would hear me do, that they would then do, is going to be tied back to this is who we are, right? Yeah. This is what we operate from. And so this is the thing that starts to really separate us and allow us to build a culture that is outstanding.
We frequently just talk about the customer, but these elements are also about your team. So it's like being consistent inside the dealership with how you handle certain things, and how you work, what's expected, being very consistent. It's and if a team feels like they can trust you because you've communicated with them transparently, you've delivered on promises, you've shown genuine interest in who they are, and you're consistent. I mean, how easy is it for them to be able to, it's coming from the top. They live in an environment where this is their guiding principles. Right. These are the things that matter. And so it makes it a lot easier for that to be conveyed to the customer as well.
Certainly. So the next one is to provide value early. So we could replace the word value with other things, but it's in whatever way you choose, it's making a decision to lean in. If I'm going to earn your trust, Michelle, then when I meet you, I make a decision to show up in a way that is, I'm gonna deliver value. I'm gonna offer more than you ask for. I'm gonna provide you things that I know would be, based on our conversation, we get to know each other, things that would be useful to you. And so I'm just gonna award those to you. I'm gonna gift them to you.
Absolutely.
And as a result, I'm gonna begin to build some equity because you didn't ask for it, or even if you did ask for it, I give you a little bit more than you asked for. It's like, this is part of how we begin to establish that, hey, we're on your side. They will, without us ever saying those words, they will begin to see that we have an interest in their success.
Yeah.
And so I think that's an easy thing for me to say. You heard the words come out of my mouth, but will they see in all of my actions and the efforts that I put forward, will they see that I'm truly interested, invested in your success?
One really beautiful way that we've seen with multiple dealers that we've worked with, Candace Price, who's one of our honorary White Hat Way dealers from 2023, they had, and there's another dealer recently that they, at their desk, the salespeople and the collections, your team, have a list of community services or people to, that they're there to solve problems early. Right. And so that if in the process of sales, the whole showing genuine interest, you're asking questions like, what are the friction points? What's happening in your world? And it can also be something that's not necessarily tied to, we can or we cannot buy this car today. But if it is something that is creating a pressure point that you could see, because you've seen these, we know that there are patterns with customers, and so you see that this could potentially become a problem. Then you solve that problem before that problem becomes a problem for you. And so it's, it can be little things that, I got to go and do a thing for my kid with the stuff, and it's like, oh, there's a community organization that can help you with that. Do you want me to give them a call right now and let them know that you're going to be coming in to talk to them, or we can talk to them right now? Whatever it is that when you can help them solve a problem early in the game, that creates just that is money in the trust bank if you can help them solve a problem. And then if they know that the collections team, the first time they get that phone call and they're having a problem, and that collections team has a whole list of things that they can help with, and that tool belt. We had Kristen Acosta on here recently talking about collections, and she's like, yeah, we have a long list of tools that can be used for solving those problems and help, because a lot of our customers don't have the skill set to solve their own problems.
Right.
And so it's a beautiful with White Hat Way. It's not giving a man a fish so he can feed his family for a day. It's like teaching a man how to fish so he can feed his family for a lifetime.
Sure. By the way, women fish too. So.
And women do too.
Yeah.
I've done that once or twice.
Yeah. But the idea here is that to be able to make those deposits in that way, and then a couple other quick things we can start to wrap up. But I think among the things that I had kind of recorded for my own preparations was, there's a lot of body language stuff that can happen. And Michelle touched on just now the idea of solving problems. So that's one of the ways we can provide value is solve problems. The other ways we can do that is very, very physical, like very specific things that we can do, whether it's a handshake, it's eye contact. So this is a big part of the White Hat Way thing in my upbringing, and the actual value and the significance of a handshake. And more recently, I don't think I've even shared with you, is I'm starting to think about a handshake in terms of a lifetime handshake. Okay, so when you think about when I meet somebody, and I think about, in order for me to adapt and to adopt this idea that when I meet a customer, I need to get in my mind that this customer is a customer who could be with us for a lifetime. We have dealers who have had customers for generations and decades, and so that's a very real opportunity. And I think a White Hat Way dealer is going to be more likely to achieve that. So when I think about meeting a customer for the first time, we don't need to go into it today, but you and I have talked recently about this kind of fear factor. We see a fear factor in the used car industry. You dealers are afraid of your customers, and the customers are afraid of you. And so if we come into every new relationship in a way that is fearful, then it stands to reason that that's going to impact that relationship negatively potentially. And so when we can develop, again, I'll call it a lifetime handshake. When I meet somebody for the first time, and my expectation is that that customer is going to be with me for a lifetime. It's really the attitude that I bring to all of our business relationships now. It's kind of that handshake is sort of our appendix W in a way, is a digital version of a handshake in a way. It's a commitment. It's like we're making that statement, we're making that commitment. So I think these are physical things that we can, you make eye contact, you have a firm handshake, and the feeling of the handshake is such that it doesn't, there's no fear in that handshake. We're going to get to know one another today. It doesn't mean that at the end I'm going to do exactly what you're asking to do, but I'm certainly going to listen and learn. One of the other big things for me is I'm going to listen and learn, and I'm going to do the best I can to provide this new customer choices. One of the things that we do, and it again comes out of fear, is that we tend to put, and we did a whole separate podcast on this more than a year ago, about customer choice, about when we make the customer accept our terms, got to buy that car with that down payment, then that doesn't build trust. That's really pigeonholing a customer into a place where we haven't given ourselves an opportunity to solve the problem. And I think there's new data coming out for us. Like we're learning more and more as we go through our V8 data and we meet the dealers and we understand more about their business approach and their practices. And you're starting to see some real strong mathematical evidence that these things that we're talking about that are intangible have very tangible
results,
financial impact.
Very.
And so I think this is part of what we're going to start to be able to share and introduce as we move forward. But certainly we'll be working to measure the things that we do to illustrate that the things that we apply, the actual application of the techniques and the methods
Mhm.
that and the principles, right, that
Mhm.
are White Hat Way, we're going to start to measure and show that it makes a difference.
It does.
Right.
It does. And one just last bit on that. The idea of having a lifetime customer, we would hope that we can help support them in having better credit and a better experience. And so, there are a lot of dealers that we work with that actually have programs in house that can help facilitate a customer that is just, they've been with us for a really long time. But also to remember, whether or not they're coming in and making a payment to you every week, they're your neighbors.
Yeah.
And they're your community.
Mhm.
And so being your neighbors and being your community, if you are a valued community member, someone that they know, these are good people. I don't need their services anymore, but these are good people.
Right.
If you don't have a program that can help support that, that being a good neighbor in your community is this is that bottling trust as well.
Right.
And so becoming someone that is a valuable neighbor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as part of the phrasing that we've adopted, the simplest phrasing we've come up with the White Hat Way is like if somebody just saw the name White Hat Way, what is it? Then the tagline or the byline would be earning the trust of our neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think this is going to be true regardless of whether we're a car dealership or regardless of what kind of business that we're in.
Whatever.
These are our neighbors. These are people that we do business
that
with.
can even
that
be a
we commune
GPS
with.
provider.
It
I
can
mean,
be,
it's all businesses that have customers.
Yeah. But if you think of them as neighbors first, they're part of your
Mhm.
community, and so I think it's like earning the trust of our neighbors. So this is why I just kind of wrap up on this idea of bottling trust. It's like when you think about that's just our effort to make it more tangible. And if you can think about if I can build up a bank
Mhm.
of trust and I can put it in a bottle, and I've got a bit of a setback with a customer, right? There's a bit of a
Mhm.
conflict or setback, and if I could somehow tap into that trust that hopefully I've accumulated,
Mhm.
then if I need to make a withdrawal from that trust deposit because it's kind of a withdrawal from the customer side, then our ability to go and utilize that trust that we have accumulated that's gonna pay dividends. It's gonna help us navigate a conflict and get on to the next thing and keep that customer as a lifetime customer as we talk about. So,
Mhm.
this is just part of our ongoing effort and the challenge that we've accepted to make these things that are less tangible, right? There's just a lot of kind of nebulous ideas here and intangible ideas, and we're working to make them more tangible and more actionable in a dealership.
And more easily communicated
Right.
to our customers and our community.
Yeah, and our team.
Yep.
Yep.
All right.
We should wrap up there.
We
Thanks
got
for
anything
tuning in,
else?
y'all.
All right. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you guys, taking the time and